Doug's ready? All right, Doug, let's go.
Okay. Moved my camera. Well, let me just start off. What Eddie was talking about a while ago is it really is so important that we cut properly. There's more than one way to do everything. You know, let me start with that. But really, cutting downhill is one of those principles that saves us a lot of effort, saves a lot of hassle, saves a lot of sanding time. The camphor bowl that I showed a while ago, had I just gouged that out, I would have had to spend a whole lot more time sanding. As it was, I don't think I spent more than 15-20 minutes total going from 80 grit to or 60 grit up to 320 grit. So it didn't take any time because I was slicing very fine on my final cuts. I was making just a real fine cut just to make it as smooth as possible. So let me show you first on a spindle, then I'll show you on a bowl blank. Just something I threw together just for purpose of demonstration. Does that look okay?
Looks fine.
All right.
For those of you that didn't catch it, he's doing this on his iPhone.
Yes, this is my iPhone. I'm in my shop on my Wi-Fi. I've got just a maple spindle here. I pulled it out. It was square just a couple of minutes ago. I don't think you can see everything. It's got some nice grain on it, a couple little spalt marks on it as well. But anyway, it's nothing special. It's a piece of maple. But here it is. And what you see, I've rounded it rough with my spindle roughing gouge. And then I came back and I did these three sections actually with my spindle gouge. But let me show you kind of the difference. It's a difference between going in straight in and coming in with this bevel, cutting or riding down that angle, whether I turn it one way, turn it the other. Now, I'm a little ambidextrous, so I want to go with my left hand going that way. But you can come around and go with your right hand going that way. Let me show it to you. This is running about 1600 RPMs. Got my shield down. I turn the bevel that way, ride it right down. Turn it the other way now. And if you can, well, you can't see the quality of that, but that is that's at least at 240 grit level right there. I don't have to go below that, but I would go all the way back, even to at least 100, if not go all the way back to 60 grit, just to make sure all that wood is even.
Doug, we just had somebody on chat ask, if you're cutting so well, why do you go down to 60 or 80 grit? Go ahead and throw this one on your bench. Go ahead.
That's fine. The reason is I want to make sure all the wood is at the same level. I may have a hard spot or a soft spot, or even in this one little cut here, I've got one little place where the grain wanted to pull out just before I got to the bottom. And that 6 grit would make that, it would make it perfect so that I could go right on up, and I would be the same here as I would anywhere else along this whole entire spindle. Does that make sense?
Well, I call it homogeneous. It makes the wood homogeneous.
Yeah, that's a great word. Great word.
Yeah, we created that word.
Sure. I was going to come back and do just one more cove here in this rough spot before we go on to the bowl gouge or the bowl blank. Shield down.
And these are downhill cuts. If you don't understand, watch how the grain is on this piece. He's cutting downhill in both directions. So he's slicing off. Now, years ago, Ron Radliff made a demonstration piece for me using the straws of a broom. And I'm going to get that out and show it to you one day. The bowl had coarse brushes sticking out of it. And that was to show folks, explain to folks, how when you did cutting downhill that you shave off the parts. If you on that one you went uphill, you'd break them off. Well, just take that piece and unmultiply it, and that's what you're looking at right here.
Eddie, talking about downhill on a spindle, it's literally downhill, going from the outer surface to the inner surface, whatever that is, toward the center of the spindle. So I'm literally going downhill. Even if I'm in the side, on my side of it, it's, if I take what I'm doing here and I turn it up, I'm going downhill, always downhill.
Now, if you went to now let's take it easy, okay? I
Okay.
went down to on what you're looking at on your right side. If I went down that slope and came up the other one pass, what do I get?
Well, it depends on your tool control. If you have excellent tool control and you're practiced at it, you can get it. But chances are, when I'm coming up this hill, right? Let's see. There we go. If I'm coming up this hill right here, chances are I'm going to catch the end of that grain and pop it out.
It's an unsupported cut.
Yeah, it's totally unsupported, and the grain itself can come loose. You could rip this all the way to the end if you're not real careful. Just like we talk about, we don't take the spindle roughing gouge and start on the end. That's because it can catch that grain and rip it all the way down. Same with a skew. We always start where there's wood on both sides. Let me grab it. I'm going to start my skew here. I'm not going to start out here on this end to smooth this down, because I could catch this end grain. Same on this end. I could catch that end grain and rip it all the way down and ruin my piece.
If you wonder how those, you wonder what would happen, and I advise people, do not go play in the shop, power on, and find out if this works or not. Have somebody turn the headstock for you slowly and watch the blade cut. And if you're wondering about the cuts we're talking about, take your pocket knife. Don't turn away from them. Take your pocket knife and pass it down that cove that Doug just cut. Pass it down that cove and then up the other side. And you will see what it does to the wood. See how Doug's doing that? He's watching that blade cut.
Yeah, the Marine Corps turner, Rod, he turned some pins over the weekend with an axe.
It was a blade, wasn't it?
No, it was an axe. He actually used an axe head and turned ink pens with it, showing that you can turn with anything.
But it was a blade, wasn't it? He used it. It was an axe, but he used it like a blade.
Yeah, he used it like he used it like a skew.
Yeah, I've turned the bowl. I've turned the bowl with a soup spoon as a demonstration, and then I was told never do that again. The guy that ran the demo didn't understand what I was going to do. But Doug showed us downhill and uphill is tool control.
Yes. Give me just 15 seconds here and I'll have this switched around so I can, I set my lathe up in the wrong spot and I'm too close to the sidewall over here. So I've got to, here we go.
Eddie, that cutting downhill.
You got plenty of time, Doug. Don't rush.
If you're cutting uphill, try on a pencil with your pocket knife and see what happens when you try to cut it up the hill.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Splits it right out.
Yeah, try sharpening a pencil going from the lead to the wood. You're going to have a difficult time. That's cutting uphill.
And when you do, if you do make it, I novice turner, if you do make it,
congratulations, right?
Yeah, but look at the wood really closely because you probably tore out more than you cut off. I love these things where you see the demonstrators on TV or YouTube or whatever, and they got chips flying over the shoulder like crazy. I've had students come to me and say, I want to be able to do that. No, you don't. What you want them to do is stop the motor and zoom in with the camera, and you're going to see what damage he probably did to his wood. And that is when you start sanding. And
that's when that 60 grit comes in.
Or a brick. Um,
And the power sanding, pulling out the drill or the orbital sander.
I gotta leave that alone. That group will come burn my house down if I talk about that.
All right, we ready?
Oh, yeah, we're waiting on you, Doug.
Okay, on a bowl. This is just a piece of 2x pine again. That practice kind of wood that you hang on to practice with. Anyway, I put it on here. I got it turned around. I put a little tenon on it. I'm in my chuck. I've got it slightly hollowed, but it's the same idea. You got to think about that grain in the wood and how it's like straws. With the spindle, with our spindle, the straws are running lengthwise, so it's running along the bed. With a bowl blank, they're running perpendicular. There we go, perpendicular to the bed, so it's going up and down or across the bedways. And so our grains are different. We can't go downhill all the time. In fact, when we're turning the backside of it, if we're going to go with that grain to be supported, we want the longer grain underneath us. So we're going to go from the center of the bowl to the outer, the center bottom to the outer top of the bowl. Then when we flip it around, like this one is now, and we're doing the inside, we go just the opposite. We want to go from the outer edge, outer top, to the bottom of the center. That way the grain is underneath the wood all the time, but we're still not going to turn with our gouge straight up and down. We're going to turn it on an angle. Now, when we start on the edge, a lot of times we do start with it straight up and down, totally closed, but we have the bevel pointing in the direction that we want to cut in. And then we come around and we open it up slightly. Let's see if I can turn this and hold it all at the same time. We want those curls to be coming off, just like Eddie talks about in his videos. He's talked about it tonight. See how those curls are coming off? And that's not because I'm gouging, but because I'm slicing. I've got the bevel right there at the back edge of the wood. And we're getting curls coming off.
Now, you do. We heard from Ron Radliff. Ron says he believes tool marks are a design element. We talk about tearing stuff out. He said those tool marks can be considered a design.
If they were done intentionally, maybe. I've got a Sorby texturing tool over there that leaves tool marks that I want in the wood. But when I'm using my gouges or my skew, I don't want any of those lines in there.
When I make a final pass with my gouge, I want it to be slick as a baby's, and just all be even. Even is important.
The less sanding I've got to do, the better. I hate sanding. Hate it so bad, and it's mostly because of the dust. I've got a dust collector that's sitting straight out in front of me, probably 5.5, 6 feet. I've got a shop vac right behind the tripod with the outlets. I can reach out and touch the outlet for it, and I bring it right up to the workpiece when I'm sanding, unless I'm doing video or something. But other than that, it's right here, and I still have dust everywhere. I hate it, but the better the cut is, the less we have to sand and the less dust we create. So let me show you a couple of these cuts here.
You said the less we sand, and some folks may be confused about what we're talking and how we're talking. Less sanding means if I go down to 80 grit, I make a couple of passes to homogenize the surface. Then I step up to my next grit, make a couple of passes to homogenize my surface. Step up a little bit and yada, yada, yada. Up a little bit, yada, yada, yada. I don't go back and forth and wear the sandpaper out, and I don't do shape with the sandpaper.
Exactly. Yeah, sandpaper's only to get a smooth, even surface so that we can go on to the next level, whether it's further sanding or the next level in the finishing process.
All right, rock and roll, cut some shape.
Okay, here we go.
Look at the flute.
Flute is pointing at about 2 o'clock. Bevel is floating across that back side. I'm not pushing real hard for a couple reasons. One, I want to stay in my cut, but also this is pine and it'll break out. Any softwood will break out. Any hardwood will break out if you push too hard. My left hand is pushing down. My right hand is holding the tool handle against my body. Russ
Well, I like
Fairfield
the way-
used to call this the turning muscle right here. And so, you know, keep the handle to your turning muscle.
I like the way you swept across that bottom. You go and do a divot. You just swept it across. Watch this. Smooth all the way across. This is where you eliminate your tear out. This is where you eliminate your valleys and the pull out that you think I got to fill with glue or anything else. This is slicing off the wood.
Now, somebody said, how do you know those are shavings? Because I can look at them.
Yeah, no,
There is, yeah, you can get dust. If I just plow into here, I get some shavings, sure. That's coming off the top. There's also dust that's collecting up right here into my gouge. Where if I turn that gouge over, it's almost all shavings. And the surface that I get behind there is going to be so much smoother. As Eddie says, this difference between cutting and plowing. That's got some lines in it still. There again, that's pine, and I was pushing harder than I should have, but it's relatively smooth. I can hit that with my 60 grit just a couple of times, and it'll be ready to go right on up the line.
So, hey, Doug, can you
Yes, sir.
take time? Can you take the time now and do a quote unquote proper final cut right there to clean up that line and make that final cut? That way you don't have to do that 60 grit.
Yeah.
now
You know what I'm
watch.
saying?
I just wanted to get that elbow stabber out of the way. It was threatening me.
All right, here's the deal, folks. Watch the tool angle and presentation, because if you think you can't take a whisper thin slice off a piece, watch the tool angle and watch how the technique
If
he
you need to
uses.
sharpen, Doug, go ahead and sharpen.
Yeah, let me do that. Yeah.
Right, because tool presentation and technique is going to solve that problem. Like I said earlier, a gouge is a terrible name for these tools,
Right.
but that's what they came with.
Makes it sound so rough.
The other thing that Dane just mentioned is when you get ready to make that final cut, go ahead and sharpen that gouge at that point. Because you've
Absolutely.
already cut about 5 miles of wood with it. You should not expect it to still be sharp.
Right.
Exactly.
Because your final cut, you're just doing a very fine removal of stock.
Yes.
And if you've got a sharp edge, you're going to have a pristine edge. And it's going to
Right.
eliminate a lot of that sanding at a lower grit.
I just made a single pass. I don't have anything special, just the aluminum oxide wheels. Made a single pass. This is my Doug Thompson gouge. Not that it matters. Half the time I'm using a Sorby. Same idea. Get that clean, sharp edge just before the final pass. That's what I did on that camper. I took the time, sharpened up, and then I could come back and make this final pass that I'll show you.
He just got in and made a very sensitive slice. Get him back on spotlight.
Yeah, I'm looking. I don't know what happened
He-
there.
He drove that in. It didn't happen. He drove it in. His piece was symmetrical. It was uniform on the outside edge. He picked at the edge, got a seat, and is now riding the seat down. All controlled by the flute.
Looks like angel hair shavings there.
It's what it's supposed to look like, I believe. And it's supposed
Absolutely.
to curl away. Now he's into what would be a third step cut, because he's coming up on something he didn't take it all the way through a little while ago. He could step up and remove some of it slowly, then go back for one final cut, which is he'll probably do, because too much wood coming off is not going to give you a great finish, especially in softwoods. And he did tell you that this is that expensive stuff called 2x6.
All right, that's better. It's still got a couple little lines. I lit the first cut because I just sharpened. I let it run a little deep on me. But you know, if I go all the way to the center so it's smooth, even, then I can do a shear cut. A lot of people say you can't do that, but you know, if you watch what you're doing and you turn that edge up, so again, it's slicing and not down here where it's going to catch. You know, I'm up here when I do that on the inside. I got the handle way down low. It's below the bedways completely. So
What he's doing is changing the angle of the slice.
let's see. Yeah, you can see how steep that is.
Watch what's coming off.
There,
A
you
little
got
bit of fine super curlies.
Yeah.
That got rid of it, Doug.
Yep.
Beautiful work.
See,
That's
you can
nice.
rub that in the palm of your hand and it disappears.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. I tried to uncoil one of those camphor coils yesterday and it just disintegrated as I
Yep.
twisted it.
Right?
So anyway, it's still got some tear out. It's pine and construction pine at that. It's not high grade stuff, but anyway, that's it. That's it.
That's the technique, folks.
Keeping
That's
our
it.
cuts going downhill on the spindle, literally going down the hill, no matter which direction it is. You can change hands. You don't have to change hands. On a bowl blank, it's still downhill in reference to the grain. You got to keep that grain supporting you underneath what you're cutting.
If you're seeing ripples, it's because you're not working the bevel.
Exactly. Or you're working it too hard.
Yeah, it's jumping out.
And then
Yeah, if
with
you
the
rub-
bowl there, that's also with side grain. It's just the opposite with end grain.
And the
Yeah,
other thing
you
is,
got to switch around.
That's where the confusion comes in sometimes for people.
well, the other thing is to describe it like a bunch of straws and have the straws come back like as you're cutting downhill. You'll see if you don't have it supported,
Yes.
it's going to tear it up. It's a good visualization that everybody shows you.
Right.
I know nobody has straws anymore, so sorry, but
Well, that's only in California.
Yeah, we like to use that stuff around the world. And I
Here,
did
this is
mean
a
that
piece of-
around the world.
This is a piece of end grain. And again, just like Dane was just saying, on my outside, I want to go toward the center of the piece. But if I'm hollowing it, I really want to start in the center and come around this way.
And cut through
I
the
want to
wall.
hook it out.
Yes.
But it's
Coming in from the
notoriously
center.
called the pull cut.
Yeah. I'd need to take my tailstock off, but yeah, you can take a spindle gouge and you can actually drill straight in and then pull, and you'll pull that on a curve and work your way to the outside. You work your way right down with it.
Hey, questions, anybody? Jump in.
That was a good demonstration. I think it should explain a lot of things to people. And when you can get to do a cut like that on pine wood, you'll do all right when you get into some harder wood. But it takes practice. For newer
Well-
people, it takes practice. You aren't going to get it the first time.
Nope.
And a lot of times, John, I think you're right. A lot of times people just need to see it.
Yes,
You know, the concept, hearing the concept's one thing. To see it is a whole nother deal.
you're right. Yep,
Good job, Doug.
Thanks,
very
guys.
good.
Thanks, Doug.
Thanks, Doug. And
You're
And I
welcome.
gotta say, some of us need to see it more than once.
Sure, I
Thank you,
do.
Doug.
We're here for you, Brenda.
Yeah,
Excellent job, Dougie.
thanks, guys.
And I
Add
think
me to
Doug,
that too.